You're old.
I'm not old. I'm oldish.
Are you going to die?
The truth is, Julius, I am going to die, but not for a very, very long time. And first, I gotta start speaking like this, and then I gotta start losing my teeth, and I gotta start pooping in my diapers.
And that was a clip from Showtime's new series, Happyish, the dark comedy created by Shalom Auslander, which centers on the life of an angst-ridden advertising executive played by Steve Coogan. And joining us now to discuss the new series is executive producer Ken Kwapis, who directed several of the episodes, including the season finale. Ken, welcome. It's so great to have you here. So I know that this dark comedy centers on a particular advertising executive, but he seems to be grappling with this existential question we all grapple with, which is what is happiness and how do we achieve it?
Right. I mean, the show is set in the world of advertising, but it's really about something that anyone can relate to, and that's the pursuit of happiness, and also the moment in, I think, everyone's life where you suddenly start to feel irrelevant. Now, some people might say that's a midlife crisis. I think Shalom would call it simply a life crisis.
Right. A sort of, you look at yourself and you say, is this it? Is this all there is?
Exactly. and I think that the issue is exacerbated when you're in a field like advertising, because you're expected to be ahead of the curve all the time, and it's so easy to suddenly feel like, oh my God, I'm suddenly irrelevant in my own career.
Well, on that note, tell us about the Swedes. They are so fun to watch, but they are almost every middle-aged worker's nightmare, aren't they?
Well, what happens in the story is that the advertising agency where Steve Coogan's character works has been taken over by two young Swedish guys. And
of course they're Swedish.
Of course they're Swedish. They look great. And one in particular is he looks like a model, and everything that comes out of their mouths is complete gibberish, and yet everyone has sort of drunk the Kool-Aid, and they are sort of reshaping the agency, much to Coogan's consternation.
It's fascinating. Now, originally the series had the late Philip Seymour Hoffman in the lead role, and you directed the pilot that he did. Was there ever a question as to whether this project would go on without him?
After the pilot, I didn't actually direct that pilot, but after that pilot was made and the series was green-lighted, there was a period where we were adrift, both emotionally and, in terms of whether the show would continue. But I have to hand it to Showtime and the head of Showtime, David Nevins in particular. He never lost faith in the material and the show, and when Steve Coogan read it, and like the day after he read it, he said, I'm in, I love this. So the show came roaring back to life.
And he's fantastic in it. What was it like directing him? It's my understanding that he usually directs himself and writes his own material. It was one of his first times as an actor, per se.
Well, he certainly has done a lot of work. He certainly acted a lot of the things he's written, but I mean, I think he really respected Shalom Auslander's voice. He really wanted to inhabit this character, and I mean, he was a dream to work with. And I also feel like he, as an actor, wanted to kind of exercise certain muscles that he hasn't been able to in the past. So, I mean, for me, it was a dream.
He's fantastic in it, for sure. Now, it's interesting that some of the central questions of this series can seem so deep, but there's also a lot of humor here.
Right. I think that, I mean, one of the great things about Shalom's writing is that it tackles very depthful issues, but often in a way that's completely absurd or even silly.
Well, it looks fantastic. Tell us what else you're working on as a director.
Well, in addition to this show, I just directed a feature film that's coming out in September, based on Bill Bryson's very popular memoir, A Walk in the Woods, starring Robert Redford and Nick Nolte, and that's going to premiere. It's going to come out on September 2nd.
Great. Well, we'll look out for that. And Happyish, it looks fantastic. Ken, thank you so much for stopping in to talk with us today.
All right.